Now, I don't know that much about Wrenn 6 lore, but they're usually a pair of two that makes a planeswalker, usually Gruul planeswalker. But here we have only 6 as a individual legendary creature treefolk. So for 3 mana, 1 green and 2 generic, you get a 2/4 with reach. But then comes 2 very interesting and good abilities. Whenever 6 attacks, mill 3 cards, you may put a land card from among them that you milled into your hand. So that is a small card draw effect, and milling yourself is also pretty good. We're gonna talk more about that soon. You see, as long as it's your turn, non-land permanent cards in your graveyard have retrace. That naturally brings up the topic for Underworld Breach. Now, milling yourself, once again, is good because you're fueling your breach strategy. But if you accidentally mill your breach, you might get sad, but 6 is solving your problems because you're allowed to cast Underworld Breach from your graveyard with 6. So you're digging and finding your breach, but also fueling your breach with 6. And this means that you kind of want to play something like Thrasius Vile Smasher or Grixis with the addition of green in the color pair. Or Yund, black, green and red would do the job pretty good as well. Absan, but different breach strategy, instead potentially Necropotence if you're going Absan. Same thing can be said about Sultai. You play Necropotence instead of Underworld Breach with Tassagur or Thrasius and another black commander. But in general you get the picture. There's also a worthy mention of playing 6 as your specific commander. You see, this is a very interesting card that not comes with 6, but synergize with 6 greatly, and that's Life from the Loam. Return up to 3 land cards from your graveyard to your hand, and if you draw a card, you can replace the draw effect with Dredge, milling yourself with 3. So there are a few lands that have cycling. Basically pay 1 green mana to put that land into your graveyard and draw a card. And you replace the card draw effect with a Dredge, increasing your graveyard size and then, getting Life from the Loam back to your hand. So here you can basically create a form of loop. You just need a cool permanent to retrace with 6 that is generating lots and lots of mana for you. That is not impossible. You have things like Phyrexian Altar, Ashnod's Altar, that allows you to sacrifice creatures for mana. And if you have a cool permanent that you can retrace that is creating a lot of tokens for green, then you can cast that Phyrexian Altar with the retrace from your graveyard, putting the artifact into play from your graveyard, casting that whatever green creature that creates a lot of tokens, creates enormous amounts of tokens, converting it into a potential ritual, and then use Life from the Loam to get back lands to your from your graveyard to your hand to basically go infinite mana and infinite mill. Another word you mentioned to create loops is with Eternal Witness and Reap. So you can't retrace Reap with 6, it's only non-land permanent cards, but you can retrace Eternal Witness to get back Reap, and from there with some sack outlets for Eternal Witness, you can create loops with 6. So it's a form of value engine. You attack, you gain cards, you cast cards from your graveyard by discarding useless lands. It's solving the problem if you're flooding with lands too, by the way. It's rebuilding your combos as you're casting your Underworld Breach or Necropotence or a Rustic Study from your graveyard, but also enabling the setup of combos. But once again, rebuilding combos. So it has a lot of really good stuff going for it, but there is one big problem, or 2 actually. The first one is that the land count inside cEDH decks, specifically these 2 by the way, is usually somewhere around 28. Or just low in general, and that means that when you're attacking with this thing, you might not be hitting lands that you can toss to your graveyard to cast your cool spells from your graveyard. On the other hand, drawing cards, milling 3, usually looking at 4 cards each turn cycle in this case, you're usually gonna hit a land or 2. But it could be good to potentially increase the land count a tiny bit and potentially build this commander pair with an orientation towards lands. Potentially have Life from the Loam inside it as well, depending on your build and what other things you're going for it, to make this one work better for you. The second problem, looking at this concept, is that in cEDH the amount of attacks you have, or let's just say the amount of turns you have, is rather low. It's usually around 3 to 4, sometimes more, but also sometimes less. Which means that you're not going to have that much opportunity to attack with this and generate triggers. So if you're getting this into play turn 1 with a mana crypt, that's great, you're usually going to attack 2 to 3 times, and that's rather good. But if you get it into play on the usual turn, somewhere around turn 2 or turn 3, you're just going to attack 1 or 2 times in that game, and then the game is usually over. So the amount of value you're getting from the attack is gonna be limited. But even though, in that regard, I still think this card is great, because as long as it's your turn, non-land permanent cards in your graveyard have retrace. There's no limit to that. So even though you're casting it, it's suffering from summoning sickness, you could be potentially winning that turn if everything is working according to plan, because you can be sitting and just casting cards from your graveyard and such. They're like rebuilding Underworld Breach and such. It's kind of interesting, you see, this is rather close to a different version of Yawgmoth's Will. The Yawgmoth's Will is 3 mana, it allows you to cast cards from your graveyard. This is also 3 mana, it's just that you have to discard a land to make it work. So, similar but different. By the way, you don't have to exile cards that goes to your graveyard once Yawgmoth's Will actually have resolved, so that's another uptick. And this is something that is sitting there forever, so to say. You have it next turn, it's a permanent that sticks into play, like a Yawgmoth's Will enchantment version. So as a finalized word, I think this card is rather amazing, but it demands synergy and a construction demand to make it work. You're gonna have to have lands, and you're gonna have to have like really good permanents that you wanna reanimate, but don't worry about like really good permanents. Rhystic Study, Mystic Remora, Necropotence, Underworld Breach, Rocks, Sol Rings, Mana Crypts and such, you're good. It can rebuild Ranger Captain of Eos, it can recast Esper Sentinels, it can recast Grand Abolishers, so yeah, you're good. On the topic of how good it's going to be as commander though, I'm going to put it somewhere around struggling. I think it has a combo that it can go for, but for mono green I think it's going to be a little bit too slow and a little bit too clunky to put that combo together. I think it's going to be a really fun commander to actually play. I kind of enjoy this kind of archetype in general, attacking and flipping cards and seeing how you can toolbox your way forward. You're gonna have a huge graveyard with this as your commander and a lot of lands in your hand to basically toolbox. I like that idea, but I think it's just going to be a little bit too slow inside this format to get somewhere. So I'm going to put it on a really low win rate. I might even go as low as 13-14, just because it's going to struggle putting a combo victory together in an efficiently timed manner. But inside the 99 I think it's gonna be great. In casual, I think it's gonna be busted. I think it's gonna be really, really good in casual actually. Thank you so much for watching this little short card review, and I hope you got something out of it. As Wizards of the Coast have been printing lots and lots of many new cards, we have lots and lots of many new videos with card reviews to make. Regardless, see you next time guys, and thank you so much for watching again.